Lies of P is regarded by many as one of the best Souls-likes of all time. And honestly, I do feel like Lies of P does a great job of creating its own identity story-wise, and a decent job gameplay-wise with respect to the formulas it tries to emulate. But does this game really live up to the hype? Is this game truly worthy of the amount of praise it's received within the gaming community? Well, I did get the Platinum Trophy for it on PlayStation 5, so I've paid my dues. Now let's talk about it. I enjoy the gameplay very much. The game runs super smooth, combat flows nicely. I didn't notice a single drop in performance. At first, I thought the combat was a little wonky in terms of mechanics and animation timing. Especially dodging just felt like it was broken and useless in the beginning, but after some experimenting with it, and a few deaths to the Parade Master, I started to get the hang of it. I've played Demon Souls, Dark Souls, and just a little bit of Bloodborne and Sekiro. I would say the overall experience is more similar to Bloodborne than Dark Souls, but the boss fights feel like a bit of both Dark Souls and Bloodborne, if that's making any sense. Even some striking similarities, like this thing right here, is clearly Capra Demon 2.0. The game offers a total of 8 Legion arms and over 40 collectible weapons. Legion arms can be crafted with Legion plugs, and there's also a neat crafting system that deconstructs weapons by the blade and the handle, and these individual blades and handles can be mixed and matched to craft completely new weapons and styles. There's a pretty nice variety of enemies as well, definitely at least 30 different troops, and I'm sure the DLC will add even more units. Stargazer placement was decent for the most part. Map design is pretty good for the most part, especially in the city areas. I do like games that reuse maps, but alter them to reflect whatever point in the plot we're currently in. For instance, you have Krat, and then Collapsed Krat. Returnal kinda did the same thing with Act 1 and Act 2. I just love how it was implemented with the story in both games. I would say the game has decent replay value, definitely enough for the achievement hunters. I wouldn't be able to play this game every single day, but if I got the urge to play it every now and then, I could absolutely sit down and play through it, no problem. The story takes place in the wonderful city of Krat, where puppets are being created to enrich human life and propel society towards the future. However, one day the puppets go mad and start killing the citizens of Krat and causing all sorts of destruction. This would be known as the Puppet Frenzy, which is where we meet our hero P, aka Pinocchio, who has been awakened to bring an end to all of this chaos and restore peace and order to the city of Krat. I appreciated the story in this game, and how NeoWiz decided to retell this story of Pinocchio. I've never actually read the original Adventures of Pinocchio by Carlo Collodi. I saw the Disney movie, which I'm sure a lot of you have. But after playing Lies of P, I'm definitely interested in reading the original novel. I love the way they flipped Jiminy Cricket as Gemini, the travel guide. I thought that was sick. I thought it was somewhat interesting what they did with Geppetto and that whole story. And obviously Sophia being the blue fairy guiding Pinocchio through his development. Lots of unique takes on these characters while keeping them somewhat honest to their original counterparts. Now, one of the cool mechanics in this game is the truth and lie system. The player will come across dialogue options throughout the game where they can either choose to lie or tell the truth. Everyone knows a puppet cannot lie. However, Pinocchio is a special puppet in the sense that not only has he awakened his ego, but he is also able to lie. These choices will affect the player's humanity level, which does have an effect on which ending the player will receive upon completing the campaign. The game did have a little bit of an emotional impact on me. I thought the team did a good job with the writing for the most part. There are themes of greed, themes of love, revenge, serving the greater good, etc. It was a delicately built world with a good amount of lore and appealing areas to explore. Lies of P has a pretty direct story, and most questions the player may have are answered by information that is provided throughout the game. The endings may stir up some questions as well as some other points in the story, but there aren't too many plot holes. Not too many things go unanswered. I definitely appreciated the characters in Lies of P. They all feel like individuals with their own stories and interests if you explore the lore. They don't just feel like generic NPCs or shop merchants. Well, except for the actual shop merchant. That dude's pretty generic. But for the most part, they're pretty well fleshed out characters. Even the side quest NPCs have depth to them. Some side quests that stood out to me were Julian the Gentleman and his puppet wife, who was implied to have awakened her ego and truly loved him. The Lable Wee lady, because I love the way she said it.
Ah, Lable Wee. Even in the bottle it has a distinctive shade of red.
And it makes me want to drink some, but it's okay, because I can pretend with some other deliciously aged wine in real life. And later in the story, if you do come back to her window, you do find out that she's passed on. Belle's side quest was a notable one for me with regards to the actual story. The Scrapped Watchman story was beautiful. Patricia and Adelina's story was a tragedy, knowing how much jealousy and hatred Adelina had for her sister, and even through all of that, Patricia still loved her. And more stories I didn't even mention. The character designs were pretty decent. I thought the voice acting was great. In terms of voice acting, I really liked the cat, Patricia, Romeo, and many others, with my favorite performances being Vanini and Arlecchino. Phenomenal performances. Those two felt like Batman and Joker going at it type stuff. That sub-story was some insanely good writing, probably the best in the game. As for Sophia, I definitely felt a connection with her, and when the time came, I really wanted to save her. My first playthrough I chose to let her live, so she died, and I was sad. I ended up getting the bad ending on my playthrough, so it went completely haywire. But then on my second playthrough I chose to give her peace, and ended up getting the Rise of P ending, which was cool. I love the world and atmosphere. These guys weren't bad at using Unreal Engine. One thing I really noticed about this game is the rain. This game might have the most incredible rain I've seen in a video game thus far, and not because it's the best fidelity-wise, but because it just protrudes realism, the presentation, how it feels, the sound effects. It's so aesthetic. It makes me want to run around and dance in it. It makes me want to take my time exploring the map. It really makes the city of Krat come to life. I did touch on this a little bit earlier, but in terms of performance and frame rate, the game is flawless. At least on PlayStation 5. I can't vouch for other platforms though. I would bet they're in a similar boat. The graphics aren't crazy good, but again, it's Unreal Engine 4. It's not going to be among the best we've seen at this point in time in terms of pure fidelity, but it does look good. I don't recall the game ever crashing during my playthroughs. A couple of glitches, very minimal. Like one time I fell through the elevator and died randomly, which had me scared of riding elevators the rest of the game. You know, and some other things here and there. But I didn't experience anything game-breaking or close to it. Overall, the audio and sound design was decent. Nothing incredible or top tier. In fact, I thought the directional audio could have been improved. And I don't think the developers implemented 3D audio, because I didn't notice it with my headset. A lot of the time I couldn't tell where exactly an enemy was by sound if they weren't in view, like say somewhere behind me or somewhere off camera. I did appreciate the Legion arm sound effects. They're pretty standard, but I guess the sounds made the arm more fun to use. The music was great, my favorite tracks being Fascination Golden, and the track playing at the Red Lobster Inn. The game has collectible records that the player can listen to, which makes for a lovely break away from slashing puppets and undead carcasses. Shout out to whatever the heck this song is, because it's not a record. This game definitely does remind me of Bloodborne and Dark Souls, but some other games Lies of P reminds me of are BioShock and BioShock Infinite. The music and overall ambience of the world gives me heavy BioShock Infinite vibes.
The Grand Exhibition
reminds me a lot of the Hall of Heroes. The telephone calls remind me of voxophones. The whole Moonlight Town to St. Frangelico Cathedral area reminded me of Fortuna from Devil May Cry 4. And fallen Archbishop Andreas reminds me of Sanctus. The city of Krat and the petrification disease they dealt with also reminds me a lot of Dunwall and the Rat Plague. So Dishonored is another game with similarities. And the carcasses being like zombies, and again some of the style of Lies of P brings me back to Resident Evil. There are just plain similarities between this game and Resident Evil, namely the first one and Resident Evil 4. These are just my opinions, but the Barren Swamp is quite obviously inspired by RE4's swamp area,
as well as the canyon area from RE4.
Krat is kind of similar to Raccoon City as well. Dead bodies all over, no citizens roaming the streets, fires and cop cars. I mean, come on, Krat Central Station is clearly the Raccoon Police Station, so I guess you can also throw in Resident Evil 2. They even have a similar garden. And the Spencer Estate is very similar to maps such as Hotel Krat, Estella Opera House, which I think is actually inspired by real estate. And the Spencer Estate was also based off of real estate, so I wonder if it's the same estate. But you know, these are some of my favorite video games of all time, and to see elements of all of them put together in one project really makes me appreciate Lies of P. And it really makes me wonder if the devs were in any way inspired or perhaps fans of any of these games back in the day. I would be willing to bet that they were. So a few negatives. Some little things, for instance, like NPCs not reacting to real-time world changes, keep this game from being that absolutely perfect Souls-like clone. For instance, when you fight the first puppet of the future, and then go talk to Black Rabbit and Red Fox, they don't react at all or change dialogue, even though they're literally standing right there watching the entire thing. Something like that would have been cool, and there's other moments like these throughout the game. Dark Souls would have had that dialogue change. Sometimes the dialogue does seem to ramble on. A lot of the scenes with Gemini seem to ramble on, and some of them had very questionable placement. For instance, being placed right at the Stargazer. Why would you place dialogue right before a Stargazer? So now I have to sit there and wait for this dude to stop talking so I can use the gazer, or just use it and cut off the rest of Gemini's dialogue so I have no clue about the rest of what he said. Maybe it was something important, maybe it wasn't. Who knows? The Souls games do it perfectly because it's a balanced mix of relevant information and lore, and it's perfectly placed in the map so as to not break player immersion. This was more prevalent in the first half of the game. Second phases are just a tad overdone, and it's a bit annoying. In my opinion, second phase bosses should serve as milestones of the player's progression, and should be somewhat relevant to plot points, or what is actually happening in the game. The King of Puppets is a great second phase boss, because you see this huge machine, and you start fighting it, come to find out someone's actually been controlling the machine from the inside, and oh snap, it's Romeo, our best friend. Romeo is the King of Puppets. See how this challenges the player, raises the stakes, and advances the story all at the same time? This is an example of a well-executed second phase boss. Something like Laxasia, for instance, even though I thought the fight itself was okay, just seems like the developers wanted to try and make a difficult boss fight just for the sake of being difficult. I feel like her second phase could have easily just been the second half of her first phase, and the entire battle would just be one single phase. The last section drags like crazy. The Arch Abbey, player fatigue will definitely set in around this point in the game, if it hasn't already. The level design is just uninspiring, the environment is uninspiring, the platforming is repetitive, and I just didn't enjoy this part of the game as much as other areas. This chapter definitely needed to be cut down, or at least split into another chapter or two and not be so packed and condensed. Some of the NG Plus dialogue doesn't make sense. The puppets are seemingly wanting to kill Carlo, even though Romeo specifically told them that Carlo is an ally. Parade Master didn't even explain anything, he was just out for blood. It could have easily said something as simple as, "We want to save Krat, will you help us?" Or something along those lines, just to make it seem like they really were trying to get Pinocchio's help. In the grand scheme, I guess it wouldn't really matter because P wasn't able to decipher what they were saying anyway, but I think it would have added a level of depth to NG+. Even if the regular puppets were passive and didn't attack you until you attacked them or something like that, just a slight difference in puppet behavior, something would have been a cool world change.
There aren't enough collectible abrasives throughout the game. I understand you can buy them, but there should still be way more abrasives the player can collect and pick up from simply exploring the maps. Fable Arts don't give super armor, which is stupid in my opinion. It's a special attack. Why do we not have super armor? While you take away my Fable slots anyway, even if the attack doesn't land or gets interrupted.
Now real quick, my most memorable moments and areas in Lies of P would be the Elysion Boulevard Stalker fight, or the Mad Donkey. The Malum District, because of the rain. So beautiful. Rosa Isabella Street. I love Fascination playing. The King of Puppets fight. That might be the best boss fight in the game. It was outstanding. And again, the Barren Swamp reminds me a lot of Resident Evil 4, which is my favorite game of all time. Now, it's time for the Zenkai scale. The moment you've all been waiting for. What score does Zenkai Gaming give to Lies of P? So my final rating for Lies of P is a 7.5 out of 10. Smack in the middle between good and superior. This is a really good game. I'm not one of those folks that slap 9s and 10s on everything. On my scale, a 6 out of 10 is a decent game. So a 7.5 out of 10 is a very good game. It's right on that brink of being a superior title. For the casual gamer, this game may not be for you, nor would I consider Lies of P to be a must-play game overall. For those of you who enjoy Souls-likes or think you might be interested in something like this, I would say absolutely grab this game and play it. Give it a shot. It has my personal recommendation. Great title, great production, great work Round 8 and NeoWiz. Hats off to those folks. I'm so glad I got to experience this game. It is truly a treat. So thanks for watching this review, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Lots more content coming, so stay tuned. You know what we say. Play and train. Game insane. I'm out, guys. Take care.